Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Conscious Living Podcast, where we are here to educate, empower, and enlighten our world, and that includes you. So thank you so much for being here with us for another episode of the Conscious Living Podcast. I'm so excited to dive into today's topic because as as a woman living in the industrialized world, the contemporary world, today's topic is something that I can really relate to. And it is our relationship with our body. Our guest today, Anne Poirier, has written what has been hailed as a game changer book, a revolutionary approach to our relationship with our body. It's called The Body Joyful. And Anne has gotten tremendous media attention and has really made great inroads with a really new approach to our relationship with health and wellness and our bodies. That's not about dieting. That's not about the perfect body image or the thin movement. And Anne herself has walked this path as she recovered from an eating disorder. So we have so much to talk about in today's episode. Anne, thank you so much for being with us. Feel free to add anything to what I've said and flesh that out anymore.
Sure, Jackie. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you all for being here as well. It's a pleasure to share this journey because I am not the only one. As we know, women across the world don't feel really comfortable in their bodies, and I believe in the United States it becomes one of the things that we put our self-worth in. And so because of that, and because that's the way I lived my life for a really long time, I finally just grew tired, I think, of it. And that's why we're having this conversation today.
Do you mind going a bit into your personal journey, Anne, and when you kind of realized you had an eating disorder, and I'm sure that had something to do with you moving into this realm professionally. Do you mind drawing that, building that bridge for us from your personal journey to your professional journey?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I believe a lot of times our past actually helps us in our present, right? It provides a guideline. It provides that roadmap. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, I just started experiencing a few different types of experiences. We all have them: experiences within the home, experiences at school, experiences in the outside world that just I internalized as my body's not right. One was a nickname from the neighborhood kids, right in my home neighborhood. A simple nickname that was only meant to be in fun now that I look back on it, but I was in a fragile state around it. And it was from a group of friends of my brother's. And so, of course, I looked up at my brother. I thought he was he was the person that I just wanted to be. I wanted him to like me. I wanted him to be my friend, that kind of thing, right?
And what was the nickname? I'm so
I know the nickname was Annie Fanny Farmer. And they sang it, Annie Fanny Farmer, like it was nice. I can still hear it.
Like only boys could do.
Yeah. So it's so interesting because anytime I say Annie Fanny Farmer, I hear the voice, I hear the words, I hear, and it just kind of hits me as a little bit of a
course.
So that's one. And what I took from that was all I heard was Fanny. It was I don't know why, but that's what I heard. And so that started this. I have a fat Fanny. And I knew, I was a little chubby little baby. My dad still describes me that: thick thighs, stocky build, sturdy, those kind of words were used to describe me. So I knew that my body was different than other girls. So that experience, and we add on to that an experience at the doctor with my mom, and the doctor pulling her aside and saying, you really got to watch what she eats. She's on the high end of the scale. We got to make sure she doesn't gain any more weight. So we go
And
home
at
and
what age was that?
11.
11. Okay.
Yeah. And, it's very interesting. My husband, who was born in about the same time, at about the same age, 10 or 11 years old,
Mhm.
his mom was told by his doctor that he should watch what he's eating too.
Oh,
So it makes you
interesting.
wonder, was there some sort of movement with
At that time,
doctors?
yeah.
Right. Which could be. Anyway, food was different at home now. My brother was thin and, could eat whatever he wants. And I could only have this and he could have that. So food was different. And then on top of that, and these are kind of in succession, 10 and 11 years old. I went to get go shopping for school, went to
Mhm.
the infamous Sears.
Of
And
course, yes, back then, I remember
right.
that well, yeah.
Um,
Kmart and Sears, the school shopping
right.
days, yeah.
And I couldn't quite fit into the regular kids section. And so there we walked to the back of the store to the husky section. And these three kind of experiences I
Yeah.
think about as seeds, like seeds that have planted that my body's wrong. I've got to do something about my body. Um, I need to lose weight. Like it became a compulsion.
Yeah.
Um, and
Do you
in
remember
June,
that? Like, do you remember actually thinking that at like 11 years old, I need to lose weight?
I remember specifically looking at magazines at the supermarket without letting my mom know, like very secrecy. I was trying to keep a secret like this was, and I just stopped eating very much. I,
Wow.
you know, it just became a compulsive
Hmm.
behavior.
Hmm.
What spurred the memory of all this, the floating memory of all this, was really interesting. It was a writing workshop, and the prompt at the writing workshop was dinner at my house and we were supposed to write for 10 minutes. And I had a flood of memories come from dinner being pressure and um, my father, making sure that I'm eating and, you got to eat what's on your plate and why don't you just eat? And it was like this war zone.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, that was the start. I actually wrote about the start. I remember the starting day that I started to lose weight, that I wanted to lose weight, right, in my brain. And that was actually the day I would probably call, not clinical, but the day my eating disorder started.
Yeah. Yeah. And where did it take you, Anne? Were you hospitalized or were you, sick? Was your life at risk? I don't really know what your journey was like into your recovery.
Yeah. Well, when this happened in the 70s, and so there wasn't a whole lot
Oh,
of
right.
research out there,
Yeah.
right? So
Was there
but
even a diagnosis in the 70s of eating disorder? Did the diagnosis exist?
yes, there was a
It did. Okay.
diagnosis.
But not really treatment.
Exactly. And I
Right.
and I was hospitalized, but I was hospitalized in a different kind of hospital, right? Just in a
Like
in a
medical.
yep, a medical hospital where I was in a small group, so there was some psychotherapy there. I was the youngest person there. There wasn't specific treatment to me. I don't remember a whole lot of it. I just
Yeah.
remember still trying to lose weight while I was in there. I
Yeah.
remember specific pieces. So those little pieces of memory. So basically, what happened is I got enough help to get better enough, you know, to stop going to a therapist and start to live my high school life. So this happened seventh, eighth, ninth grade. So I don't remember much of those years. That was,
Mm.
and in 10th grade, I started to play soccer. And I think that was my avenue out. It
Yeah.
was something that gave me another obsession.
Yep.
It kind of another little it took the place of that. And if I
Well,
wanted
and
to play soccer,
self-esteem too. Like there's a sense of belonging. There's a goal and a mission. I mean, sports are so good for kids, and it saddens me that most girls actually drop out about a year before you got in. When kids are little, sure, everybody plays sports. The 5, 6, 7, the age 10, 11 years old, and girls mostly start abandoning sports around puberty.
and that's when it can be the biggest self-confidence and
Right.
self-esteem booster for
Right.
sure.
And sense of belonging, sense of connection. And it's so,
Mhm.
so good for kids. And when it's done right, when it's done well, it's good for kids.
Yes, nice sidebar to that for
Yes.
sure.
Put a little asterisk on that one.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So your journey there,
Yes.
so was it an upward swoop from there? From 10th grade, you started getting well after joining soccer and having a different focus?
I wish that was the case.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think it was, it was kind of simmering in the back.
Yeah.
And in my sophomore year in college, we got weighed as we went in. And I had a
You got
coach that,
weighed into
Mhm,
going into college?
mhm. It was for preseason soccer,
Oh, okay.
right? So I was playing soccer. My
Okay.
freshman year went okay. Uh, and then the same coach the sophomore year, and she weighed us. And I remember, here it's just the little things. And I share these because this is how small it can be to put somebody into uh, a feeling of inadequacy
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
spiral them into negative self-worth.
Yeah.
I stepped on the scale and she looked at me and she said, "What did you do all summer, Anne? Eat?" And before you knew it, I was right back at
Wow.
as a 12-year-old.
Sent you all the way back. Man,
Spun me
that
right back.
is so powerful. Just that I'm sure she didn't mean to be
Mm-mm.
cruel or whatever, but yeah, that level of mindlessness of
Mm-hmm.
how we interact with people, and particularly young people, but people in general. I've heard similar stories of office, like office dynamics of, somebody just making an offhand but kind of cutting comment, and how it
Mm-hmm.
sends someone's career, even as adults, into some kind of a negative spiral.
For
Wow.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And
Yeah.
that's why it's so important to take breaths before we comment and when we talk and when we make when we respond to things.
Right.
And that's it. So that just spiraled me back into kind of, disordered eating behavior. I wouldn't
Mhm.
say I spiraled into an eating disorder. At that point, it
Mhm.
wasn't, it was more just disordered eating. And for many, many years, never feeling quite right. Always going on and off diets. And that's where the yo-yo dieting started, and the use of, laxatives and different things, and compulsive over exercise for sure. I
Mhm.
went into fitness because I thought that would keep me, quote unquote thin. And that's, so I spent my life kind of fighting this cycle. And when I was going through a divorce, another, life event that throws kind of havoc into your life,
Yeah.
I spun directly into over exercising and not eating and drinking too much. And, it just was another spiral in.
Yeah, sure.
And I had a great boss at the time that just pulled me aside and said, "You need help.
Oh, wow.
I can see that you just need help." And
Yeah.
she was very kind and
Yeah.
very it came to me in a way that was non-threatening.
Yeah.
And that was when I went back to a therapist and I
Yeah.
started to do more work and more work and more work. And I actually flipped the switch at that point
Mhm.
and went back to school for eating disorders, and really started to
Wow.
shift a whole, like it became, between my mom being the resilient, let me get her help, to my boss.
Yeah.
Her name was Pam, and she really helped me just turn a different corner,
Yeah.
open my focus, see a different perspective, and start a new journey.
Beautiful. And becoming conscious about your
Hmm.
your eating, your body, yourself, your self-esteem.
Hmm.
Wow, what a beautiful story, Anne. And now you work full-time in behavioral health.
Yes, I
And
do.
yeah, and
Hmm.
also as a body joyful coach.
Yes, I work at Hilton Head Health in South Carolina, and I do this work. I do the body image work. I do the emotional eating work, where
Oh,
we turn to food, because we don't feel good about ourselves, or we're not feeling comfortable, or we're having an emotion that we don't like,
oh,
or,
so,
it's
so
that,
good. So,
it's
so
all that
good.
relationship.
So let's
Hmm.
dive into it. Thank you so much for sharing your
Mm.
personal journey with me. I really find that inspiring, and I'm really glad and grateful to your boss and your mom and to you that you were able to create this resilient path of recovery and now go forward and help thousands of is it women that you work with, or do you work with women and men?
Mostly women and
Mostly
some
women.
and some
And
and some
some men.
men for
Okay.
sure.
So
Yes.
glad that you've done that. So dive in. Tell us about the job, the Jotty Boyful. That was interesting. The body joy, right? I can't even say it. No, that doesn't say anything about my relationship with my body image. The body joyful. Tell us about your philosophy and the body of work, and yeah, and how you help women do that. And then I have some questions, some personal questions I'm going to ask you after that. So let's get to it.
Absolutely. Well, The Body Joyful, the book, the subtitle is My Journey from Self-Loathing to Self-Acceptance. So it is this space of, it's my personal story, but then it also dives into where I went from there. How did I find peace in my body, and what does that look like? And it started with a term which you may, if you Google my name, you'll get it. It'll be connected to it too, called body neutrality. And body neutrality is this space of turning down the volume of society's thin ideal, right? Of what society says we should look like. And also turning down the volume of our critical voice, the one that beats us up, the one that looks in the mirror and says all the things that it says, turning down the volume there and turning up the volume of just the body as a vessel, what it does, how it works for us, what it can do. It is not about its appearance. It's more about its function and what my body can do.
I've got to interrupt already because this is great. How do you turn down the volume on all the messages that we get? And particularly, I do a lot of work around taming the inner critic and that voice that we all have. So I'm glad you include that in your body of work. But get into that a little bit. We're inundated with messages of what beautiful is and what the body should look like. And of course, thin is top on that list. So so get into that a little bit. How do you turn down the volume on the images that we get, and how do you tame the inner critic with that voice in your head?
Well, there's so much to that question. So thank you for asking that question. But
I
there's
do realize that. Yeah, that's like a series of podcasts, right?
Because my brain goes, well, that and that and that and that.
Right.
But that's such a good question. So it is not one thing. And that's what I want to share. A lot of it has to do with questioning some of our belief systems around it. Where did we learn that our bodies had to be a certain way? And who did we learn that from? And then why is it continuing to be pushed forward? Yeah. And if we were to take a look at bodies over the course of the last 100 years, even, the body image, the quote unquote right image, has changed over the last 100 years.
Right. And it changes across cultures also.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so if we look at that, there's just a fact that how do we even know what a right body is? And how are we all supposed to fit into a mold of a body when we all have different gene pools? When we're all supposed to be.
I think a part of that, Anne, is relates to just kind of basic human psychology, that part of what helps us feel safe is a sense of belonging. And, when we're inundated with these messages of what, quote, the right body or the attractive body looks like, the healthy body looks like, it's unconscious. We unconsciously assume that if I'm not that, then I'm bad or wrong or something. It's a breach of belonging, because if the cultural message is X and I'm Y, it does create this kind of inner conflict about the self that can get played out in a myriad of ways. It can get played out in overeating and undereating, or oversexing or undersexing, or all various expressions of self-loathing. So it's such a critical piece that you're really honing into this thing of body image, because it's so central to who we are as human beings.
I know, and I think that's why it's so hard. And one of the first pieces of work is, how do we separate our worthiness as a human being with the size of our body or the weight on the scale? Because they're not the same thing. And yet culture has really told us that they are. If you look like this, you will be accepted.
Yeah, right. Right. You'll be accepted. You'll be popular. And look, I hate to say it, but there's like all kinds of research that kind of supports that. People who are objectively attractive earn more money. Men who are taller earn more money than men who have a short stature. it's really kind of sick and crazy how much we have internalized this message of an image of beauty, and then how we reward that.
I know. And that's what's so sad, is because we're not all going to be able to be
Of course.
what the world says we are supposed to be. And if we continue fighting ourselves and beating ourselves up because we can't sustain the ideal that we are supposed to sustain in order to be, then boy, do we have a long life to live of self-hatred and self-loathing. And that's
some of your go-to tips, Anne. Like, I know there are ways that you help people, but what are some of the ways that you help people, again, turn down that void? And I know it is a life. I'm asking you a question that the answer to it is, it's a lifetime process. I really do appreciate that. Same in my work, because I work a lot with changing consciousness, changing beliefs. I always say, be careful not to believe everything you think. What you think isn't true. It's just, patterns of neurons firing based on what you're inundated with and what you've experienced growing up. I mean, that's how our neurology gets formed. So I really do appreciate that this is in some ways an unfair question, but I really do want to tap into your expertise around body image and how you help people change their thinking, turn down these messages that we get.
Yeah. One of the very first things I do is an kind of a visualization for people that helps them identify how to separate self-worth from body image.
Okay.
And in that visualization, I ask them, and your audience can do this, because I think it can be a powerful exercise, to pick 2 or 3 people that they like, their friends they like to hang out with, write down why they like them. What are their qualities? What are their traits? Why do you like to hang out with them? And then after they've done that, you pause and you ask yourself, does it have anything to do with the size of their body? And it never does.
Wow.
Maybe every once in a while there's one thing that they
Not
can,
at all.
but very, very little. It's all to do with their inner being, who they are. Of
course. I play in a men's racquetball league. I'm a racquetball player. And I was just thinking, there's so many people I enjoy spending time with, but of my racquetball buddies, the 2 that I most enjoy spending time with, they're big, big men. And I enjoy playing on the court with them. They're big, big men who are probably close to clinically obese. So, and this isn't an athletic endeavor. They're not the guys that you'd see on the front of the magazine. They're these just like regular dudes, working in IT or human resources, and, who show up, and they're my gym buddies, and I love them. And they got big pot bellies, and, they're good racquetball players. I can beat them sometimes because I'm quicker than them still. So, I can, that's such a great exercise, Anne. How powerful.
Yeah. And we flip that exercise to back to you, because it actually creates a moment where you have to say, to think of a couple of people that like to spend time with you and like to hang out with you. And it makes you, and I ask them, what do you bring to the table? Why do they like to hang out with you? What qualities and traits do you show up with that make them feel like they want to be with you? Which is some inner work, which can be hard. And some people have a hard time with that. And that's part of this work.
Yeah.
But then asking that same question, does it have anything to do with the size of your body? And it never does.
It never does. Right.
And so we're really trying to separate that you as a human being are really, your qualities and your traits and your talents and the things that you're good at and the things that you're passionate about and your values. All of those things is what radiates from you. So that becomes one tool. And then another really simple, easy tool is, how do we just take a look at our bodies and be grateful for what they do? They show up every day. They get up out of bed every day. Where I'm at, I think about, there's many people that come to the place that I'm working at, and they haven't exercised in years, and they show up to an exercise class. Wow. And their body shows up and they do it. The body just says, okay, here we are. Let's go. Without any...
You're separating kind of the body from the self, which I really love that. You're making a distinction. Do you mind deepening that a little bit? The separation of what quote unquote, the body does. I love that. I do a similar teaching, like you are not, my primary teaching is you are not your thoughts, but I also, when you are not your body, and I do an example of, like, if you cut off your right hand, are you still you?
That's
Right?
so true.
Yeah,
Right.
and how far do you want to go? The professional speaker, Nick, I always mess up his last name, like Vladachik or something like that. No arms, no legs, no worries. He was born with no arms and no legs, and he's this extraordinary, so how far do you go before you're not, quote unquote, not you any longer?
Right.
Another one,
Yeah.
and you may not know this, and then I'm going to give it back to you, but there's really interesting, I'm really into happiness research, and there's some interesting research on happiness that shows that lottery winners and people who have become, can't remember if it's paraplegic or quadriplegic, but some form of paralysis, 3 years longitudinally go out and study those people, lottery winners and people who've become paralyzed, and their level of happiness for the people who've experienced the injury is happier than people who have won the lottery. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just so supports your view of you're not your body, because those people who've lost, some serious form of physical functioning have found a way to incorporate it into their being and create an experience of happiness with it. So say more about your distinction between the body and the self.
Yeah. Well, I think about what you just said is that the people that, have had trauma, they now, this is who they are now. And so now what? Right. And it's easy to go, I wish I had, or why didn't I, or, we could fall into that. And a lot of times we have to step away from yesterday and what's happened and step into, okay, yes, and let's validate it all your experiences. And yes, and now what? Now where are we going to go? And I think about our body. Our body has been all different sizes, right? It will continue to be different sizes as we grow older, and we might gain weight, we might lose weight, we might shrink a little bit, right? Like, our bodies will change, our faces will change. Those things will happen, but every experience we've ever had in our lives has come through this body. So I think about our bodies as a vehicle. It's the vehicle that we get to experience our life in.
Beautiful.
And how do we take in the experiences and put less pressure on the actual image, the body image, and say, you know what, this body did get me out of bed. This body did get me to the store today. This body got me to work. This body told that story to my grandchild. This body, like all those little things that our body can do.
Yeah.
And not just the physical body, but the imagination body, our imagination, our functioning. My body digests all my food that I ate today.
Yeah.
My lungs, were able to breathe in fresh air today. Those are things that we want to, our senses. I can see the sunrise. I was able to see the sunrise today. It's shifting the perspective away from I shouldn't eat this. I should or shouldn't exercise this way in order to lose weight. It's more like, let me do the things and step into the activities that make me feel good in my body.
That make you feel good. I was going to challenge that a bit, because, we live in such a fast food culture, and so much of what our media might call food isn't really food, or what the food companies call food. I say this to my son, honey, just because they call that food doesn't mean it is. So address that a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of nasty food out there. You're saying make choices that make you feel good, not make choices that make you look good.
Right. And feel good, if you think about some of the things that you're talking about, if we really pay attention to our body, our body might be able to tolerate a little, but to tolerate a lot, it doesn't really like it all that much. It tends to rebel a bit.
What if it's all people have known? Like, I'm sure you come up against people that have been, kind of raised with horrible nutrition, and then they got into their young adult life and it was fast food nation, and, now they're full on adults and it's kind of all they know. How do you deal with that?
Well, then you look at what are their goals? What are they looking for? You
Yeah.
know, what do they want? How do they want to live their life? What does that look like? And if you want to live your life, or what kind of things do you want to be able to do in your body? And if you want to be able to do that in your body, then let's
Interesting.
find a path. Like we can reverse engineer that. I want to be able to climb that mountain. Okay, well, let's reverse engineer. What kind of foods do you need to do to eat to fuel your body in order to do that? What kind of exercise do we need to move your body to be able to do that? It's not about the number on the scale per se, or the visual image in the mirror. It's about, let me see what's the reason I want to be living for the next 10 years. What kind of things do I want to experience in my body? Sometimes it's as simple as I want to get down and up off the floor.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's work on that.
Yeah.
And let's
Yeah.
make sure that that's part of, because it's that deeper why. It's that intrinsic kind of motivation that comes from within,
Right.
and something that is we're passionate about. It's connected to our values. It's connected to who we want to be, how we want to show up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I'm sure it's not easy. You know, again, changing thought patterns, changing habits. We all know that's no easy ride, and changing our neurology, changing our neural pathways. The other thing I'm interested in, Anne, is I read some of your media reviews, and it said your book is the anti-diet approach. Talk to me about, because diets, it's a billion-dollar industry or multi-billion-dollar industry, diets and eat this way, and, diet companies. So talk to me about diets, anti-diet, what your philosophy is about that.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting because I was on the diet on and off bandwagon for a really long time.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing about diets. Dieting, or a particular diet, it's a brilliant business model. Here, go on this diet, lose this weight, and when you fail, right? 95% of diets fail. When you fail, then here, come on back, right? It's so interesting because if you look at in the United States, the obesity epidemic has increased,
Easy.
what, since 1980 up, where it's been, the trajectory is going up, 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 up. If we look at diet culture and the amount of diets and how many diets are out there, that has also increased.
Interesting.
Those two things really shouldn't be
right
in the same.
They should kind of have the opposite trajectory.
Exactly. And so when you see that, you're like, well, wait a minute. If we've been doing this for 50 years,
yeah,
why? And there's some really great research out there. One of the research studies that really flipped my switch on all of this was the starvation experiment. It was done in 1944 and 1945. People can look it up. Dr. Ansel Keys did a research study, and he was actually trying to see how we could safely refeed people coming out of concentration camps.
Oh, wow.
So there was a real reason for this study at the time. You could never do it now, but he put 36 men, started with 40, went down to 36 on an extreme diet, cut their calories for 50%, but it was just a diet. It went from 3,000 calories to 1,500 calories for 6 months. And then all the things that happened to these people, with more obsession about food, metabolic decline, right? Increased sensitivity to cold. They were obsessing about their food. They were talking about recipes. They've lost sexual interest. They were isolating. They're hiding food, trying to binge. So it was just this very interesting study that made me go, if they knew that way back then, maybe we would have tried something different. And so we have to look at food and eating just differently. And so my approach is more, the guideline is intuitive eating, but it's tuning into our bodies. How many times do we eat when we're not hungry? How many times do we eat and eat too much? When we're not really tuning into what our body needs as far as hunger and fullness and feeling satisfied, and, eating because of emotional reasons or stress reasons. And, it's tuning in. It's tuning in and trusting. I think about this connection with our body. I need to learn to trust my body to tell me when I'm hungry and when I'm tired and when I'm full. But my body also needs to learn to trust me because, I have listened to it be hungry and not fed it.
Yeah.
I have listened to it be overly full and not stopped eating.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a reconnection that needs to happen.
Really fascinating. I love your thinking about it, listening to the body. That sounds like quite an in-depth process of really tuning inward rather than numbing. Again, we're living in such a numbing culture. We all have our computers in our faces in these tiny little, we all have a computer in our pocket 24/7. We're a numbing culture. And we use food to numb. It's
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's
And we're looking for instant gratification all the time.
Right, exactly. And the way the foods are made feeds right into that. So I really get that. I told you I had some, a couple of personal things I wanted to ask you. So let's dive into that. I make myself a little vulnerable here. So you said our bodies change over time. And that's certainly true from birth to around, 15, 16, my body grew. But from 16 to 60, my body was pretty much the same. I was like between 125 and like 133 the entire time. I turned 60 in April. And I'm now 7 pounds heavier than I ever have been. Talk to me. And let me say one more thing. I don't like it. I don't like it. I mean, I've never had to. I guess maybe I had to pay a little bit more attention to what I was eating and how I was eating. And I would say I eat really healthy compared to the what we call the SAD, standard American diet. Vegetarian. And not a vegetarian that just eats pizza and peanut butter and jelly. So I do eat. I would say I eat pretty healthy, and yet my body is doing this thing.
And you really haven't changed much, have you, as far as eating and exercise?
No.
See, and that's the thing. The body is it's the body's way of moving into menopause, right? It's the body's way of saying you're getting older. I hate to say it, right?
Right. Thank you. Thank you, body, for pointing out the obvious.
I turned 60 this year too, so we
You
share
did.
that.
All right. There we go. There we go.
And it's interesting, as we get older, the body actually needs a little bonus weight in case we get sick, because it's a not only is it hormonal, and there's all kinds of things going on in the system when we hit menopause, but I know as people age, if they get sick, they need a little bit of extra weight in order to help them. So that's kind of one thing that I think about that's part of this equation, that maybe the body is helping protect itself and its safety and its survival, which is part of it. And then there's this other piece that, okay, so if this is the case and you want to, say, release a little weight to get down to feeling more comfortable in your body, what are you willing to do in order to do that? Not necessarily what you want.
Anything if I knew what it was. So I want to mention one other thing, because we talked about all these companies. So about a year ago, maybe a year and a half, I joined the Noom app, Noom. And all these promises I followed that thing to a T. I can be kind of obsessive myself, and barely dropped 2 or 3 pounds. And I saw comments on there's a chat feature, and a lot of other women my age said the exact same thing. So I feel like I'd do pretty much anything, but I just don't know what else to do.
Right. It's, the only thing that we can do, right, is we could increase exercise is what we think we need to do.
Okay.
Unfortunately, though, as we're in an older population, we're better off adding strength training rather than any kind of cardiovascular, because that's helping skeletal muscle. We know that that's important. That can help actually with our metabolic rate too. We can increase our protein intake. Increasing our protein intake and our fiber can be helpful.
Interesting. As a vegetarian, I probably don't get a whole lot of protein. I mean, I'm mindful of it. I eat legumes and beans, regularly, but yeah, probably not as much as what a meat eater would get. And that's the other thing. I play racquetball and basketball, a few times a week, probably 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a week. So I'm pretty active, but I don't do weight training. I don't lift weight. So that might be the key that might help this phase of my living. And I know, we lose muscle mass at a faster rate after 6. So
yeah. And if you add strength training, protein is part of that component, to put those two things together.
Yeah. How else can I get more protein as a vegetarian? Any suggestions?
I actually, there are probably some plant-based protein.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I do a
Yep.
yeah.
Protein powders in my smoothies. Okay. Yeah.
And that might be just a little bit of added increase to that.
Yeah.
I actually was a vegetarian for a long time until I had knee surgery and knee replacement, and then all I craved was chicken. So
there you go.
And so I just started, my body, I guess, needed it, right?
Yeah.
And so I do eat some protein, a lot of vegetarian, but I do eat some protein, and when my protein is plant-based. So I do have a plant-based that I have every day. It's part of my a powder. It's part of my base. And that, I don't know if you eat any dairy, but there's some protein in some dairy things, and always. Yeah, that doesn't always agree with stomachs. So
yeah, no, it doesn't bother my stomach. I'm pretty much vegan. So, but I say pretty much. I eat some cheese, and we have a summer home in upstate New York where there's a huge Amish population. And so when I go to the Amish farm and I watch the little 5-year-old Amish run out to the chicken coop with a bucket and bring me my eggs, I eat those.
Yeah.
But I don't, I don't like the industry, the meat and poultry industry. I think is just evil, and that's my hesitation of participating in that.
Yeah.
This is so helpful. I really love your approach, and I'm really going to take that on. And of course, there's all kinds of psychological reactions to just seeing my body change, and not feeling like I have authority over it, or and then what that represents about us getting older. Like, wow, I was talking to a personal trainer, and he referred to me as one of the as an older person. When I work with older people, it's like I wanted to slap him. Like, that's really bad for business, buddy. When we work with people of your age group.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, to start being seen as one of the older people, which for those of us that are kind of energetic and vivacious and not used to that.
Yeah, there is an acceptance, of a new chapter.
Yeah.
Wayne Dyer would talks about this is the afternoon of our life, right?
Yes.
And as we enter the afternoon of our lives, can I accept my changing body? Beautiful. and not hate it?
Yeah.
For changing. I know you're changing because this is what we're doing, but
this is life, right? This is what life does, right? I mean, trees eventually die, and rocks get worn down by water and rain, and everything changes. It's the nature of life. So what a breath of fresh air and a refreshing look at our relationship to the body. So Anne, if people want to get in touch with you to perhaps work with you and get your book, let's talk about that. Where can people find you?
Sure. Well, I'm happy to offer a free digital copy of The Body Joyful for anybody who wants it. They just have to reach out to me at anne@thebodyjoyful.com.
Nice.
And I will be happy to mention you, of course, and your podcast. And I will be happy to send out a free digital copy of the book. So there's that. And then they can find me at shapingperspectives.com.
Okay.
And if I could just finish by saying, I think I have a brand new book out called Not a Fat Annie, which is for 8 to 12-year-olds.
Oh, sweet. Wait, not a fat what?
Not a Fat Annie.
Not a Fat Annie for 8 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah, it's not a play on, it's a little play on words. It's not about a girl named Annie, but it's a book on body image. It's a book that talks about bullying and body shaming and weight stigma and negative self-talk. And a young girl empowering, her own inner voice. And so that, is for our next generation and hopes.
Love that. I have a son, not a daughter, but I'm gonna get a few copies of that anyway. I have I have three nieces, sorry, four nieces. Forgot one. I have four nieces, so I could definitely share that with them. I love that. So Not a Fat Annie, and that's on Amazon.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
All right. So The Body Joyful and Not a Fat Annie for children, and The Body Joyful for the rest of us.
And actually, all the people that have read it as adults, the children's book, have found it valuable.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Absolutely. And this has just been so, so great. I'm so glad that we had this time together. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your journey, and hope for a healthier relationship for all of us with our bodies. So thank you so much for being here with us.